Hey, it's Ian Aber, and we are back with another episode of Straight People, the podcast for straight people by queer people, because straight people don't have what? Enough. They don't have enough. So we have this cute little podcast so you'll stop trying to take over the fucking government or whatever it is that you like to do on your weekends. We are joined. You're the first guest to ever appear three times on the podcast. We are here with Zachary Wright. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm great. First to do the three-peat. What an
Yeah,
intro.
the three-peat. Yeah.
I have a question
Um,
though. You said the podcast is for straight people. So that mean you can only listen to it if you're straight?
No, it's for straight people because they don't have enough. You know what I'm saying? So like
Okay, yeah.
queer people still listen because like we are just fascinated with straight people. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, every inch of pop culture is just straightness being shoved down our throats. You know what I'm saying? So like an
Okay.
extra podcast to listen to just about straight people, that's just like so cute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's entertainment for straight people, a case study for
Exactly. For queer people, it's more of like a, that's what I assumed. Oh, yes, barbecue sauce is for straight people, isn't it? So Zach, the last two times that I had you on, you had some pretty what I would consider to be hot takes on politics. You were very pro Stacey Abrams, but you weren't very optimistic that she'd win. You know what I mean? So you sort of called that. And then I can't remember specifically we talked about the second time, but it was about like
these are
Trump
the
and
primaries a lot. I think it was we covered a lot of like Buttigieg, like claiming it was
yes,
Iowa before
there
they
you go. Yeah.
counted.
So I thought I'd have you on. I feel like that, like in my household, since Biden's been elected and specifically the inauguration, there have been moments where like I just look over at my husband and he's smiling and I'm like, bitch, why are you smiling? We're in a pandemic. And he's like, oh, I just thought about how Biden's president and I don't have to read any more Trump tweets. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's
Yeah.
this general like idea that the good guys have won, right? And now we're just going to live happily ever after. Pop that bubble for us. Pop that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you wanted to go back to brunch, but I think there's still a few things going on that need to be addressed. One of the like big things I see with Biden is like, especially like more so like specifically because we're in Atlanta, uh, the Georgia Senate races were very much like ran as, hey, you elect our guys, 2000. Biden himself said $2,000 checks go out the door immediately,
Yeah.
and we are now on day 6. No checks have gone out the door. They're no longer $2,000. They're now $1,400 checks. And yesterday, Biden said he's willing to negotiate the $1,400 check. So that's already, it seems like it's going to get cut down even lower, and we'll maybe get it by March, April. I've seen a lot of people, a very funny take is like $1,400 plus $600 is 2,000. You're still getting your $2,000, which is
Yeah.
like a very like funny thing to me. It's like even okay, so you got a little loophole there that it's still technically 2,000. That's still, I don't know how many people could pay for 10 months of rent with $2,000 split up into a $600 check and a $1,400 check months later.
Yeah.
Like it's ultimately it's still like a very, I think that's a very pointless thing to be like, well, actually the government's being smart and saving money this way. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Well,
I'm
and also like I don't know a lot of people. Even if let's say it was $4,000, I don't know a lot of people who have like the wherewithal and management skills to then take that lump sum and then spread it out over the necessary amount of months to live on. Do you know what I mean? Like, why aren't they sending a few like a couple $100 a month? Would it be that much of a burden on the American government to issue? So instead of a specific one-time payout or two-time payout, pay like as this is going on everyone who's eligible, give them some money per month, which is what they're doing for Social Security, so and unemployment
I
and
mean,
people who are on welfare programs.
Canada, Australia, a lot of different like countries that do not have as much money as we are have been doing $2,000 monthly checks the entire
Monthly $2,000. Wow, could you
the
imagine?
entire pandemic. Yeah, imagine the U.S. government giving you $24,000 to survive instead of like, hey, maybe we'll give you like an extra $50 on unemployment this week. It
Yeah,
would be really nice to have that. I also think with Biden coming in, a lot of people have like like, oh, we finally have someone who like trusts science. Like we don't have to worry about the pandemic. Like we have someone. It's nice to not worry about the That's Jimmy Kimmel tweeted that out. Like it's nice to not like worry about the pandemic anymore. It's like
Yeah.
in LA, like 1 in 3 people have COVID. We have new strains like being like developed like in our like country, like 2 different strains that have popped up specific to us. And then uh, in terms of like Biden's plan is honestly, I see no major differences. Schools are still reopening. California is reopening. There's a mask mandate, but he didn't even follow his own mask mandate at his inauguration the night of.
Yeah.
And when called on that, his press secretary was like, "Oh well, it was a big night because COVID can't spread when you're having fun."
Well, I mean, they say that if you well, they say actually it's a joke that Christian Davis tells that if you smoke enough pot that it's caustic on the virus in your lungs. So if you have the virus and then you smoke a bunch of weed, then you'll be okay. So I heard it at an open mic. It's got to be correct science, right? I mean,
Yeah, that checks out to me.
now, did you enjoy the inauguration though? Like when Katy Perry sang "Firework," like when did it turn into a Katy Perry video? Is what I want to know. It was like it all led up to like this big final moment, and I was like, did she pay for that, or did they ask her to be there? You know?
Uh, I watched the inauguration while I was at work. I didn't
Yeah.
even get to hear any like I was just watching it. I like read like some of like the speech later. It was like I just don't understand how we're gonna like unify the country by just one old man barely holding it together.
Well,
Uh,
and that's a very good point. That is a very good point because like a lot of people think that Trump like that's Trump's base, right? And I don't think that that was Trump's base. I think Trump emboldened people who would normally have kept that kind of rhetoric to themselves, almost closeted, if I'm going to use the gay analogy,
yeah,
and encourage those people to come out of the closet. And he became like he basically is a human dog whistle for that mentality. And I think that like the notion that like for every one of us there's one of them, that's pretty fucking scary because like I've always known as a gay person, like you sense the resistance when you meet somebody who may not like you, but they won't go, you're gonna burn in hell forever. They give it to you with their eyes, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
now that person feels like that they got a Trump flag on the back of their truck, they're gonna run you off the fucking road now, it's like a different vibe. I don't think those people are gonna calm down. I think they're gonna regroup.
I think that's definitely possible. I think something also interesting with a lot of Trump's base is I feel like it's also a good percentage of people who don't normally vote. Like these are not people that were like excited about Mitt Romney. These are not people that were excited about John McCain and went out and voted against any like Democrat or like just like voted Republican Party line. There's a lot of people who are like, man, that dude's saying it like it is. I've never heard a politician talk like that. So let's do it. So I think also like his base not really emboldened, but I think it's a new thing brought into politics that we're gonna have to deal with for at least the next couple like general election cycles.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll lose steam. Maybe the crazy Trump QAnon people will burn out. Maybe they'll be absorbed into the Republican Party and have their own sort of like the way that like the Tea Party was
Yeah.
2000s, and we'll see more like people running on QAnon crazy bullshit.
So what do you
Or
think? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say, or just it becomes like another like dog whistle of like Republican senators that'll say it to them, do nothing, still the same policies passed for like the actual corporations and keeping their lobbyists happy, but then say, but the government's full of crazy pedophiles. I'm not one of them, but like it's real. We got to get them. It's like,
Right. I love QAnon because QAnon, if you just subbed babies for black people, that's the Republican Party. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe they're not eating them. And I'm always wondering, where do they get all the babies? Like for QAnon, like is that what the abortion clinics are for? To give them that pipeline of fresh babies? Do you know what I
well,
mean? Like, I
that's
don't
what
know.
I love QAnon because it is like I love when like someone is very close to being right, but then just completely takes such a wild left turn. Like yeah, there are people in the U.S. government. Like we saw Jeffrey Epstein, we saw like multiple people in his black book list. It's like I agree with you that there are people like that in the U.S. government, but then we're at the same page. Then you take this wild left turn of, but Trump is a white hat pedophile. He's been doing it just to bust the other ones. He's been getting in those circles not because he likes it, but because he's gonna take it all down. It's like. That's probably where you lose me on a lot of that. It's that was the whole thing, is like watching like the QAnon people like after the inauguration just like sort of come to terms with the fact that the storm is not coming. The storm that was supposed to be all
Yeah.
the posts of like they're gonna arrest all the different Hillary Clinton's going to jail. It's finally gonna happen, and then just as the inauguration, you can watch on like different like websites. It's like, all right, at noon, this is going to happen. It doesn't happen. It's just like, oh, wow. I made everyone in my family hate me for no reason. I fucked up. And it's just
that's Payne's mom. Payne's mom is like, she, like every time when she's at our house and she has her laptop out, I'm like, are you trying to catch Hillary? Like literally, because she still is like, and she's like, I can't believe this all went down and Hillary came out unscathed. And I'm like, Hillary has basically retired to private life. She's not. I mean, what do you think? What do you think she's controlling stuff behind the scenes? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it's bad. So let me ask you this: what do you think is the biggest misconception among liberals and Democrats about what's like about Biden's presidency, about what it means for Biden to be president and for Warnock and Ossoff to have basically for us to have flip the Senate, or how they want to describe it, make it so that it's a tie.
The main argument like I ran up against when I talked about the possibility of like using the little electoral power that the left has of withholding votes from Joe Biden unless he guaranteed anything to the left.
Yeah.
Was that, well, don't worry, we'll just get him in office. We just gotta get Trump out, then we'll push Biden left. We'll push Biden left. And that was like the thing that I was seeing. But like I talked about the stimulus checks, that's already been cut down without even anyone asking. The children are still in cages. There are still all these issues that are unresolved. It started under administration that he was a part of. They're not going away. I don't think it is possible to push Biden left. I think it is impossible to push Biden left without a power structure in place that we do not have. What we need in this country right now is we're very much like history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Like it's very similar to pre the New Deal and like the Great Depression, like what's going on economically, the loss of jobs. We need mobilization of that level. And the only way that the New Deal got FDR was not like some like populist hero growing up who like rose through the ranks and like same kind of the way Bernie was he was a silver spoon rich kid.
Yeah.
But he had all these labor unions that were very strong in the country coming to him being like, we're not going to vote for you. We're going to withhold millions of votes. So he has to go to all these business owners and lobbyists, be like, hey, I have to give them something or I got nothing. I'm not going to win. And he ends up, the lobbyists are like, well, just let the populists go do it. They're low class, they're peasants, they're not going to do anything. And FDR goes with the New Deal, backs the people up in a populist movement, and becomes, the first president to win more than 2 terms. He continues getting reelected, one of the most popular presidents of all time. And the only way we're going to be able to recreate something like that is if we spend the next 4 years building the labor movement in this country with things like organizations like DSA, which is very popular. Like it's approaching now, I believe, 100,000 members, which is making it, which is sad, but it's making it the largest.
Wait, is that the Democratic Socialist Army? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a member of that?
Yes. There's the Atlanta chapter. There's also one now in Augusta.
Okay.
I would like to see. There's a few issues with DSA, but they've gotten better over the years. They started, of course, as like a blue no matter who sort of same thing, and have gotten now more selective with who they choose and who they back.
Yeah.
And I think the power that they have, though, is not currently enough for like electoral politics. It's more at the local level of finding urban centers like Chicago. There was a alderman who was backed by DSA, voted a way that they didn't like, so they removed all their support from him. That means you don't have people knock on doors for you. You don't have those small dollar campaign donations coming in, and you lose your seat. Like that's the only way that like DSA like really has like power over politics. What it can really do, I think, honestly, spending the next 4 years instead of worrying about electoral politics just because there isn't the power structure there, should be instead obviously building that power structure. Instead of pushing Biden left, you should be working on like pushing your coworkers left, like creating more of a class ideology, class like awareness of people like you work with, trying to unionize workplaces. Like right now with COVID going on, you should be like essential workers should be like the number one goal of like, if you have people in very important places like say grocery store, like food like line, like directly from like farms and people,
Yeah.
they have the ability to go on strike and get more demands for like what they need. But the problem is, because of how effective labor was in going on strike and getting the New Deal, basically since the 70s, they've spent a lot of money and effort. By they, I just mean like lobbyists, the powerful people at the top who hold the most capital, have spent a lot of money and time trying to take away your ability to do that. So now it's a lot harder to go on strike. These things are very
Well,
different.
and like it's always struck me that like most jobs that I had that weren't like professional, so I would consider it like unskilled or semi-skilled labor, waiting tables, working back of the house, coffee shops. None of those had any unionization at all. The only union I've ever been in is when I was a bag boy at Kroger. We had a union, which I never did a damn thing for me, but I paid $12 a paycheck to be in it, and I was always like, I thought this was the beginning. Like when I got that job, that was the beginning of me being in unions for the rest of, you know what I mean? And then every other job I've ever had, it's like, oh no, oh you're a account specialist at an ad agency. Yeah, there's no union for that. Stupid, you know. Yeah. It's like, so I think that's the thing. I think that like generationally, I wonder if anybody under Gen X, besides skilled labor, people who've worked in like automotive industries or plumbers, or you know what I'm saying, like that they even have an understanding of what unionization would mean for them and what power would bring for them as a voting bloc.
I think the Bernie Sanders campaign did a lot to like motivate young people in this country to like focus on the idea of labor and class solidarity. We saw this year is the first time in like 20 years, I believe, that union density increased after like consistent decrease. Now the amount of union jobs actually went down by quite a bit just because of COVID and people getting laid off. But the people in the workforce joining unions finally for the first time in years went up. So we're starting to see a little bit of it. And that's what I mean is like, if you care about building a left that has any power, you're going to need, you can try working from within the Democratic Party. You have like members like the Squad, but to rely on 5-6 people to have the same like moral standards that they have when they go in 20 years later, while you keep adding to these people, is just unfortunately a big ask. Like I don't think it's possible, but if you're like, I don't know if you saw anything with the force of the vote debate that's been going on the left a lot of like, there's Jimmy Dore, a comedian, went very hard after the Squad, calling them the fraud squad of like, you should have withheld your vote for Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker of the House until you got a floor vote for Medicare for all. Yeah. And it became a huge just shit slaying fest of people like personally attack each other. Either you're on Jimmy Dore's side, you're protecting AOC, when honestly it was just what it should have been and what it is, just a disagreement in strategy. Do you think they should try to use whatever political capital they have to get this done now? Or do you think that it's pointless because we have a president that said he will veto Medicare for all, and it gives a lot of like moderate Democrats that cover where they can vote for Medicare for all and look like they appeal to these things, but they know there's no real possibility of it getting passed, so they just get to like stave off like anyone trying to primary them in 2022.
Yeah.
So
And that
like
brings
that's
me to my next question. What's your predictions for 2022? Do you think that we'll see another swing right? Do you think that we'll see a further swing left? Do you think that people who were mobilized to vote in this election will now think, oh, everything's fine. Let me go back to not paying attention to any of it?
yeah, I think unless we see actual relief from the Democratic Party, like genuine help for the working class,
Yeah.
they're going to get massacred in 2022. It is going
Yeah.
to lose the Senate.
So what if they don't relief doesn't happen, but there's significant legislation around racial reform? You know what I'm saying? Like, so what if they do some but not all? What do you think the issue is? Do you think the issue is getting us out of the pandemic, getting us financial relief, specifically to the working class, or do you think that like I mean, because like for me as a gay person, they've already reversed some of those executive orders that so like gay people go back into the employment thing where it's like you can't be fired based on your sexual orientation, even though that's federal and I live in a state that's right to work, so they can truly fire me for being gay. But moves like that are things that I pay attention to, especially in
And they
the first
recently
six.
reversed, I believe, the transgender ban.
They did in the military. Yep.
I mean, each individual person, but I think when you have people who are, out of work for this long, who need to feed their children, need to feed themselves, need to pay, they're behind on mortgage, when
Yeah.
you offer them things like, okay, this is like this affects, say the ban of transgender in the military, that tells them, okay, this is someone who cares about like progressive politics in the sense of like having like fair representation across the board and like Biden's cabinet being diverse. But unfortunately, politics is and always has been, what can you do for me? So
Yeah.
if you feel like a lot of people feel like so left behind economically, their material like condition has not improved over these past 2 years, like there's a significant amount of Democrats who voted for Obama who then went and voted for Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
Those are people who have needs that were not met and they are willing to try something else because those needs are still existing and they didn't get them solved under Trump. But if they go back to Biden and see like, well, it's also not solved under him, and they run a smarter, more effective fake populists on the Republican side for 2024, whether it's either Trump again or someone, hopefully not someone smarter who will actually be better like running those fascist dog whistles.
Right.
I think they might jump back again because they're like, well, again, my life has not improved. Standard of living continues going down. I think the best hope Democrats have is in Senate Chairman Bernie Sanders. Like if the ambitious policies he wants to do from that position are things like a temporary Medicare for all during the pandemic, universal early education for like pre-K, cancel student debt, free tuition-free college. Like these are things that were like people could actually see like a legitimate like change in standard of living very quickly from these policies. And they would feel, okay, well, if the Democrats lose the majority in the Senate, we don't have someone like that fighting for us or the ability to do something like that. I think ultimately it comes down to you need some type of mobilization economically, as much as like because there's also a significant portion of the country who don't care about identity politics and
Absolutely. Well, no, it makes a lot of sense because it's like what have you done specifically for me? What tangible thing can I say is different? Because one of the things that I noticed was after the election, there were a lot of like gay people that voted for Trump, which blows my mind just right there. But I didn't know a single one. I just kept hearing about them. So I did an article about it, and I talked to a few who none of them wanted to be named in the article. But the biggest thing is that one of them, like they couldn't point, but most of them couldn't point out anything other than they were so sick of cancel politics or whatever it was, but something that they were against that they thought Trump was for, but maybe not really. But the one thing is that one guy was like, well, since Trump took office, I get $70 more in my paycheck than I used to because of the tax cuts. So $140 a month. That's all it took. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's still like, oh well, if Trump runs again, I'll vote for him. And I'm just like, what? Like, are you kidding? Like, I will give you $140 a month. I don't know where I'll get it from, but I'll find that money to stop you from, like, But you're right. You're absolutely right. It really comes down to if the Democratic Party can make a significant impact on the daily lives of like the working class. I think and it seems like that's what they're supposed to be doing. That's what we believe the Democratic Party to be about. But it's like, I don't know. You're right. It's just another old man you can't trust, And as cute as Joe Biden is, and as much as like Kamala Harris too, I wonder though. Like Kamala Harris is pretty moderate, right? I mean, in terms of at least her career as a prosecutor doesn't really lend her a lot to like being a pro social justice, racial justice person.
I think like something that would be like a small in the sense of like it's pretty tame like across the board politically. Like I don't think you'd get much backlash for something like marijuana legalization federally, like across the United States. I don't think you'd see much pushback for that. But it would actually have a big impact on people's lives. It's like there is a like certain point where like you are keeping this private prison industry alive a lot through drug charges, which should not be happening.
Right.
But I think we've seen like through like the history of like Kamala like consistently locking people up for smoking weed and then going on the Breakfast Club and being like, yeah, I smoked weed before. It's like you're not. I don't see even like something. Not to say that like marijuana legalization wouldn't do anything, it would be big, but like even something small like that in the sense of like political risk, it seems out of reach for this administration.
I mean, what about legalized pot and then all the taxes associated with it goes towards healthcare?
What Bernie Sanders wants to do is been a proponent of for years is of course like cutting the military budget, and I think like there is absolutely no reason why we can't cut our just gigantic military budget and like focus on healthcare and yes, like legalize weed and use that. I think honestly, like if you legalize marijuana and you taxed it at a certain rate, that should probably like a good amount of it should go back into like programs for like getting people like jobs like out of prison, like erasing like those records of people who've had their like lives ruined
right
by these dumb charges where completely based on like the color of your skin determines how harshly you're going to be punished, like just having a little bit on you and then they push as high as they can. Then if you're white, you just really sort of get a slap on the wrist. It clearly is like, let's take the money that has been used for these policies to destroy Black communities in America and put that money from the taxes back into those communities.
I love it. One day you're going to be running for something. I'm going to put my money on that. Like one day, like when being a comedian won't like completely ruin your chances of being something. So I feel like we have solved a lot here. Say again.
TV star. I don't think comedians should disqualify you. If we have reality TV star as president, I think you can have a
comedian.
I don't know, city councilman.
Well, the speeches will be good. You know what I'm saying? Like it won't be there'll be no filibustering. Do you know what I'm saying? It'll be keeping it real short and sweet.
Well, they're expecting a speech. I'm just gonna do crowd work on them.
What do you do for a living? Oh, that's very interesting. It's very interesting. Okay, well, I feel like we've solved a lot. Hopefully people who listen to this podcast will start unionizing, the tens of people that listen to the so we're gonna do real quick a couple it's straight or gay. Okay, I'm gonna name a item or topic or piece of our culture, and you're gonna tell me whether it's straight or gay, and if you feel like it, why. Okay. Straight or gay baseball.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with straight because of like most of the dudes I know are very much like dip spitting, like they like that sort of aspect of baseball. But it did throw me for a loop a little bit because most of the conversation I've seen about baseball when I was in high school for some reason was about like the pants
Yeah.
and how it made you bubble. I
Okay.
saw dudes like bragging about that. And I was like, that makes me feel like it could go. Can I go with this feel pansexual? Is that a possibility for baseball?
Yeah, we can do that. We can say it's
Can you hear
bi.
me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. You're okay? Yeah, you're back
Okay.
though. Okay, so that one we're gonna call officially bi. Okay, straight or gay, fast pitch softball.
I'm gonna go with gay on that.
Okay, a
I
gay.
feel like that is like very stereotypically like there is like that type. That's a very a key part of the lesbian community.
All right, I love it. Gay or straight, rollerblading.
I'm gonna go straight on this one. I know what people think, but you know what? I'm trying to reclaim it. I'm trying to reclaim it for
I
straight.
think when it first came out, it was gay, but yeah, the straight
Yeah.
people, the only people still doing it are straight. Okay.
Like if you buy the little camera and like you're doing like tricks and like at like the skate park, that feels very straight to me.
Yeah. Okay, straight or gay, bucket hats.
Bucket hats. I would have normally said straight on this, but this is very recency bias. I got hit on by a dude with a bucket hat last night at my job. So I'm gonna go gay on that one.
Okay. A gay guy who's not doing living his best life. He's hitting on
Yeah.
the people that work at the Mellow Mushroom while wearing a bucket hat. This guy, he might have just come out. You know what I'm saying? He's a gay guy. He's a gay guy that listens to Tim Dillon's podcast. That's what I'm gonna call it as. Okay, straight or gay, tiny top hats.
Tiny top hats. I feel like I'll go straight on that. Just because it makes me just think of the Monopoly guy.
Okay.
And I assume
But proportionally, that's a regular size top hat
that is true.
to
Okay.
him.
So
Imagine I'm wearing a top hat and then I take that top hat off and then I have a tiny top hat on.
that'd be amazing. First of all, that would blow my mind. I'm still going straight on it. I feel like
Okay.
hey,
Hey, this is subjective, so
not a fashionable. I don't think that's a very fashionable thing to do.
okay.
I feel like tiny top hats only look good at like little birthday parties.
Okay. So this is the last one. It's my favorite one to ask. You are at like a friend of your family's, so like a friend of your dad's, your friend of your dad's daughter's wedding, right? You're in a barn. You are drinking non-alcoholic beverages because it's a dry wedding out of a mason jar. They don't have a wedding cake; they got cupcakes, and it is the father-daughter dance. What do they dance to?
Okay. Dry wedding. I feel like it's. Can I go with church hymn on this one? That sounds
Whatever. It's your answer. Just a church hymn.
Dry wedding, like yeah, like this is gonna be like some like religious music playing. Like they don't want anything that's gonna get too dirty.
Okay. So do you no you don't have a song in mind? Just
No,
a hymn. Just a hymn. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to imagine a full choir.
Like one hymn, please. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll change it up a little bit. So it's not a dry wedding. They're drinking alcohol, and they're only going to be playing a secular, or what is it? Is it non-secular or secular? Which is
Secular.
Yeah. So they're only playing secular music.
Song.
The father-daughter dance. Okay. Yeah. Yikes. Let's hope you don't have any daughters, Zach. Let's just hope that you don't have any daughters. Zach, tell people where they can find you online if you want to be found online.
You can find me at Zach W Comedy on both Twitter and Instagram. And if you listen to this and you're like, oh, unionizing your workplace sounds like a good idea, but I don't know where to start, please feel free to hit me up. I will provide you with resources. There are tons of like online meetings where people are working across the country on like especially dealing with COVID, how to unionize your workplace and how to ensure safety for you and your coworkers.
Awesome. Zach, thank you for doing this. I miss your face. I miss seeing you. Hopefully we'll get back to some form of normalcy by the mid or to end of this year. And
well,
herd
we
immunity, baby, herd
have
immunity.
a president who believes in science again, so it's just all going to disappear without any change in policy.
He was there the day they invented science, you know, so it'll be good. All right, my name's E Neighbor. This has been Straight People. Thank you for listening. And if you like our podcast, review and rate it on Apple's Music, iTunes, because that's very important for some reason. Everyone tells me that's so important. So please do that. And if you don't do that, just have a good day, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Zach. Bye.